It's time for the 1430 Connection on 1430 WNAV and 99.9 FM, spotlighting news, newsmakers, and important community issues. Now, with this week's edition of the 1430 Connection, here is WNAV news anchor Donna Cole.
Welcome to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me today is Steve Schuh. He's our 9th Arundel County executive. Welcome to the studio today.
Thank you for having me, Donna. Appreciate it.
There is a race coming up in 2018 for the county executive. I'm sure you've heard about that.
I was aware of that. Yes, there is going to be an election next year. I can't believe it. We're now 2.5 years already into our administration, and the first votes in the next election will be cast in 10 months.
It's crazy, huh?
Absentee voting starts in 10 months, and the primaries next June.
Goes by pretty quick.
It sure does. It's unbelievable how
and
fast it's
so,
gone.
what do you plan on doing in 2018 and beyond? What are your goals for your political future?
Well, I haven't made any official announcement about my intentions, but
Would you like
to? Well, not today, but I'll probably end up running for re-election, and mainly because I feel like our work is not complete. I came in with a very definite plan, 5 major priorities. They're all important. We have made really good progress on all 5 of them, but they're not done. Mm-hmm. And it just, the wheels of government turn a little more slowly than I'm accustomed to from my business background. And it's going to take every bit of 2 terms to get everything done that we're trying to accomplish.
So what's on the to-do list right now?
It's number 1, tax and fee reduction to make it easier for people to live and work here. Number 2, improving our educational system, particularly by accelerating construction of smaller neighborhood schools. 3rd is improving our system of public safety, pushing back particularly against heroin distribution and helping people get into recovery. I think that's something you wanted to talk about later. Improving government operations, making it more efficient, customer friendly, and finally improving our quality of life, especially by cleaning up our waterways and improving our recreational infrastructure.
Okay, let's start.
Those are the big 5.
Let's start with that one. I like the environment. We all like the environment.
Really important.
And it has been a big push with you. Prior to your administration, I think we had 2 public access boat ramps in the county, maybe. One is right here in Annapolis. The other was
Sandy Point.
Sandy Point.
Neither of which is county-owned.
Right.
2 years ago, there were exactly 0 county-owned boat ramps in Anne Arundel County. And public boat ramps are really important because only 3% of the shoreline in Anne Arundel County is in public hands. 97% of our 530 miles of shoreline is in private hands. So if you're not in a water privileged community or a member of a boating club or something like that, it's very hard to gain access to the water.
Yeah, you have to trespass.
Practically. So our goal is to open up a boat ramp on the north and south shore of every major river in this county, and we're making good progress. We opened the first one last year at Fort Smallwood Park. It's incredibly popular. We're going to open another one this year in Shady Side, and we're just going to keep punching them out over the next several years. And similarly, we are opening canoe and kayak launches at a very high rate of speed. I don't even know how many we have now, but we're building them all over the county, and people are really enjoying taking their canoes or their kayaks and getting engaged with the water.
I, for one, am loving these parks that are opening, so thank you for that.
We're opening the parks, really important.
So I will say, there's probably been some lessons learned with this. I live near Homeport Farm Park, right down the road, Solomon's Island Road, which is beautiful.
Yep, beautiful.
However, when you open a park without kind of any supervision, and the Parks Department did a great job with it, you were wonderful to make this happen, but there's only so many resources they have, so they couldn't keep an eye on some of these parks. And Homeport got vandalized quite a few times, and they finally decided to put a gate on Homeport Farm Park. Have there been other lessons learned in this process that you will now take going forward?
Absolutely. The county had been squirreling away its parks for decades and allowing very limited, if any, public access to vast tracts of publicly owned land, which to me is very bad public policy. If Anne Arundel County is going to take the public's money, your tax money, and use it to buy land, you should have access to it for bird watching, hiking, biking, or swimming at the beach. And that was one of our goals to improve the quality of life in Anne Arundel County, was to allow people to have access to these beautiful parks. But every time you open a park to public use, you have to address a lot of issues. environmental impact, traffic, security, and making sure there are adequate facilities for bathing, for restroom, parking. You know, there's a lot that goes with it. And so it's not a simple matter of just snapping your finger and opening all these parks one afternoon and having the public
Pile in with all of their stuff,
no,
right?
It doesn't work like that. So we approach this in a very methodical way. We study each park. We develop a master plan for the types of services that will be offered there. We study the traffic situation, the environmental situation, and we stage the process of opening the park.
Rollout and,
we stage
and
the
the
rollout.
amenities.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I think our Department of Recreation and Parks is pretty solid in their approach to these park openings.
And lessons learned, if there aren't restroom facilities now, perhaps down the road, actually, and that's literal with Homeport Farm Park because the road is too tough to go in, I've been told, to empty and take care of a porta potty.
Road improvements are needed there.
Okay. Mayo, some lessons learned there, and you heard the community loud and clear, I think.
Yeah, we had a lot of feedback on Beverly Triton Beach. That was one of our initiatives last year. Beverly Triton Beach is a beautiful, very large expanse of prime waterfront property. It's been owned by Anne Arundel County since the early 90s. It goes back to the Lighthizer administration. It was purchased to be a public park and an environmentally protected area. The county undertook to develop Quiet Waters Park at around the same time and couldn't bite off both of those projects at the same time. And for whatever reason, County Executive Lighthizer chose to go with Quiet Waters, which has been a fabulously successful park. I think everyone would agree with that. But Beverly Triton has been left undeveloped and has almost no support services, very limited parking. I don't think there's any bathroom facilities to speak of. The shoreline is eroding. There are a lot of issues with it. It gets very limited use, mostly by people who live in the immediately surrounding area, and that's about it. And as I said earlier, if we're going to deploy taxpayer money to own land, the taxpayer needs to have access to it. So we laid out a laundry list of the types of services and programs that could be offered at an improved Beverly Triton Beach Park. We put that out for general public comment to get feedback to see what services people would actually like to have. I think in terms of lessons learned, what I would say I learned from that experience was that it's not a good idea to put the whole menu out because people get confused. They thought that was our plan, was to put everything but the kitchen sink out there, including, a dog park and a frisbee field and croquet courts and javelin toss.
I think the community is rightly concerned. One way in, one way out. It's a peninsula. They already have a lot of traffic. They have had incidents where emergency vehicles are slowed down getting onto the peninsula.
Sure.
And they just don't want anything more.
And that's true of every community in Anne Arundel County. They
not
don't want
in my backyard.
Exactly. Nobody wants anything more because they've got what they've got. And but the issue of peninsulas affects everything. That's true of the Fort Smallwood Peninsula, the Lakeshore Peninsula, the Mayo Peninsula, Annapolis Neck. Every one of these peninsulas, for all intents and purposes, at some point becomes one way in and one way out. And that's just the price we pay for being the water people who live at the end of peninsulas. We can't build parallel roads to down every peninsula to keep it in reserve as a backup for when there's a crash on the main artery.
But you want to make sure the people that don't have access to these waterfront facilities, parks, that don't get to see the beautiful Chesapeake Bay do, and sometimes that does happen in people's backyard.
Accidents happen. Now, what we are going to be doing, and we're doing this all over the county on these one way in, one way out peninsula roads, is widening them so that every accident doesn't block the entire passageway. In the case of Beverly Triton Beach, we've asked, that's served primarily by a state road. 214 Central Avenue is the big issue. We are working with the Hogan administration to get the Hogan administration to make substantial improvements to 214. We also have developed very significant plans to improve the shoreline and to mitigate any environmental impacts at Beverly Triton Beach. In response to the feedback from the community, we've downsized the amount of parking and therefore downsized the number of people that can get in there. We've added security, like at your park. We've added gated security. And we've eliminated some of the sort of unnecessary types of programming. What will happen there is mainly hiking, bird watching, picnicking, low impact type.
It will not be Sandy Point.
Oh, no. No, we have no plans for a boat launch or anything like that there.
Moving on, we're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and talk about a little bit more about the environment. And this is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm in the studio today with Steve Schuh. He's our Anne Arundel County executive. In one of the past shows I had on, there's the thought of filing a lawsuit against the county regarding the critical area law and not enforcing it. And this is in reference to habitat protection and yellow perch up in the Magothy area. Are you aware of that? And do you feel the county is doing enough to protect critical area?
I think the area you're talking about is called Cattail Creek. That's very controversial. A developer has proposed a housing development in the area around Cattail Creek. Cattail Creek is a small tributary of the Magothy. It runs up to Ritchie Highway in Severna Park. It is environmentally sensitive. The environmental community believes that there are certain types of fish that spawn there that don't have other spawning grounds in the immediate region, and that it should therefore warrant extra protection. We are, in our administration, very, very aggressive about enforcing environmental law. We're very serious about the environment generally in our administration, which is why we've launched the largest waterway cleanup effort in county history, $240 million, 300 projects all over this county. So our bona fides in this area are second to none. The problem with Cattail Creek is that the experts on whom we rely from a legal perspective and from an environmental perspective believe that that is a legally developable area, and that if the developer complies with existing law and regulation about how to go about his development, how to manage the sensitive areas immediately around the water to prevent stormwater runoff into the creek and other protections, that the project has a legal basis to move forward. And we do not live in a society where I can just exercise arbitrary power and say, I don't like your project, too bad for your private ownership rights of that property, I'm going to take your rights away because I want to protect that creek. We have to follow the law.
Moving on to another series that I did on the 1430 Connection, and this followed an interview I did with Sherry and Larry Lycan of Severna Park, who lost their 16-year-old daughter Ellie in 2015 to suicide. That led to the revelation that they were part of a study by two sociologists that came in, one from University of Chicago, one from University of Memphis, that said, Severna Park, you have a problem with adolescent suicide. The community has since started getting together to discuss this issue, that Severna Park does indeed have a problem with the adolescent suicide rate. The sociologist said the community itself needs to address it, has played a part in it. We are already stretched thin here in Anne Arundel County, and actually probably globally, because of the opioid epidemic. Were you aware of the suicide issue in Severna Park? For instance, Severna Park High School has an unfortunate moniker known as Suicide High. Were you aware of that?
I have heard some talk of statistics in the Severna Park area. We have a suicide problem, not just in Severna Park, and not just with youth, but throughout Anne Arundel County, and it includes veterans, adults, and children. The struggle we have here in Anne Arundel County is that we do not have an adequate infrastructure to deal with the vast array of mental health challenges, including substance abuse disorders, that are manifesting themselves in our county today. One of the things we did approximately a year ago was undertake a complete assessment of our mental health and substance abuse disorders infrastructure, the services and programs that we have to offer here in Anne Arundel County, to see what we had and what we needed to close the gaps. The good news is everything is in place. We have outpatient, we have inpatient, we have adult, we have adolescent, we have substance abuse focused programs, we have traditional mental health and behavioral disorders types of programs. That's the good news. The bad news is we don't have enough of anything.
Right.
We don't have enough of anything. And it is very clear to me that Anne Arundel County government is not in a position to build out the type of infrastructure that we would have to address these very serious issues. And that's why we are working in partnership with the nonprofit community, the faith community, the hospitals, providers of all sorts, to piece together and fill out that infrastructure. And I think we're making progress, but we have a long way to go, and you're quite right. It was bad enough when it was just traditional mental health issues we were all dealing with. Now we're dealing with this avalanche of people suffering from opioid addiction, which is going from bad to worse.
Right.
2 years ago, we had 48 fatalities in Anne Arundel County. This past year, there were 120. 2 years ago, there were about 350 overdoses per year. Now there are over 800. And so far this year, in 2017, overdoses are up another 20%. So we haven't seen the last of this. Now, the only good news is that we so far this year are seeing a slight decrease in fatalities, even though the overdoses are increasing. Why? Because intervention has gotten better. Our first responders are getting to the scene more quickly with life-saving drugs like Narcan and pulling people back from the brink of death. But obviously, if the overdoses keep rising, eventually those fatalities are going to start getting pulled up as well.
All right, let's take another short break. This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We will be right back. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me today is Steve Schuh, our Anne Arundel County Executive. Let's talk about an area that maybe not a lot of people know about you. You are a patron of the arts.
Yes, love the fine arts.
And you're still involved with the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra?
Yes, I've been a board member at the Baltimore Symphony for many years. I currently serve as board treasurer.
Not to get into national politics too much, but there is a concern for many in the arts community that cuts to the NEA, National Endowment for the Arts, might be forthcoming. Who knows? There's a lot of mights on the horizon, maybe, maybe not. But when you start talking about the idea of cuts in the arts at the federal level, that often trickles downstream to the states, to the counties, and to here locally, where we do have a lot of wonderful arts groups in Anne Arundel County as well as in Baltimore. How do you feel about that? What do you want to say to the arts groups in Anne Arundel County that might be concerned right now about money going away?
I can't really speak to what goes on in Washington that's above my pay grade, but I do understand that our federal leadership is dealing with an immensely expensive undertaking in combating worldwide Islamic terrorism. And there are going to have to be sacrifices budgetarily in other areas in order to maintain the vigorous, aggressive offensive that we need to undertake to beat back this once every 100 years type challenge to our very survival and way of life. So again, I'm not going to second guess the federal government and its priorities, but I understand that they have to deal with some very difficult budget issues to achieve the things they've got to accomplish. But here in Anne Arundel County, we are in good shape from a budget perspective, so there are no threats to the fine arts. We are deeply committed to providing adequate funding to our fine arts organizations of all kinds, the performing arts, sculpture, painting, everything imaginable, and most of that is through the Arts Council of Anne Arundel County. That is our vehicle, an independent institution that we fund through county government, and that makes independent decisions about where the dollars will actually go.
We just had April on last week.
Oh, good. I'm glad you had that conversation. April has been leading the Arts Council for many years, does an unbelievable job, and makes a lot of hard decisions herself. I know that they get funding requests for 2 or 3 times the funding they have available, so they have to make their own tough choices about where to send those scarce dollars. Right.
Step back to recreation and parks one more time. Golf course, purchase of the golf course. You also, your family was in the golf course business, right?
Yes.
So you know a thing or two about golf courses. You think this was a great deal?
I don't know if I would say it's a great deal, because the golf business is a tough business, and there's almost no such thing as a great deal in the golf business.
Right.
The golf is a service that we in county government believe needs to be part of our portfolio of recreation and park services, along with equestrians, with youth athletics, and the many other things, our park system. There's certain things that we believe we need to provide to be the best place to live in Maryland. And among those services we need to provide is golf. Right now we have the golf course in Pasadena at Compass Point that serves sort of the North County community, but we need to have a fully functioning, high-quality golf course to serve Central and South County. Eisenhower is perfectly positioned to do that. The problem with Eisenhower has been that the actual land has been owned for decades by the city of Annapolis, but the operating company, the company that operates the business part of it, is jointly owned between Annapolis and Anne Arundel County.
Right.
Well, those kinds of 50-50 joint ventures are generally dysfunctional in my experience, and this is a perfect example of it. Nobody knew who was responsible for maintaining it. Is it you? Is it you? Is it both together? But for whatever reason, no maintenance was basically done on that golf course for 50 years, and it's now in a terrible state. The county was prepared to invest the money, which is going to cost upwards of $5 million to make up for 50 years of lack of maintenance, to restore the greens, the tees, the traps, to convert all the fairways to Bermuda, new cart paths, new clubhouse, new cart maintenance barn, tree maintenance, the whole schmear.
Right.
We're prepared to do it, but we can't plow $5 million of investment into the city of Annapolis' property.
Right.
Who would do that? So the city, I think, saw the light and realized that if they allowed us to purchase the golf course for $3 million, that they could put that $3 million to really good use and clear the way for us to make the investments necessary to turn it into a first-class asset that would serve both county and city residents. I don't think most city residents are going to know or care who owns it as long as they have a great place to play golf at a fair price.
Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Donna.
This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We'll see you next week.